Okay, so to continue on from the previous lesson, what we're going to do now is basically look at all these different settings that we should know about when working in weight paint mode. Now, the first thing that I want you to do is go under options and make sure that the strength is checked under unified settings, so we don't have to worry about this. Go under the tools and make sure that this is set on add over here, and make sure that the strength is all the way to 1 and the weight is set to 1 over here. Now we're going to actually just leave it like this and go under file and now do save. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk to you about is how do you change the strength in the radius over here with keyboard shortcuts. Now by default, Blender does not give you a keyboard shortcut to change the weight. Okay, so if you press the F key, you can change the radius over here and you'll see that the numbers are changing. Now if you do Shift F, this is going to change the strength. Okay, so now if you think about this, because we don't have access to a keyboard shortcut by default in weight paint mode to change the weight, we can actually use the strength as the weight by keeping this at a value of 1. Right? Now if we don't want to use keyboard shortcuts, we can keep this at 1 and change this value. So as an example, here we're just going to put this at around 2 and go ahead and switch this over here to the vertex and click on this vertex over here and put this to 0. So now press the F key to bring this down. Go ahead and click this. So you'll see that it's going to start to add the numbers over here. Okay. Now go ahead and put this to 0. Now if you put this strength to 1 and you do Shift F to change the strength, and let's now take it back to pretty much the same value over here, and now click on this. So you'll see that it's doing the same exact thing over here. So you can use it this way if you want, if you like to use keyboard shortcuts to control the weight value with a Shift F. Okay, so that's that, right? So now what I want to show you is that if you put this all the way to 1 and press the F key just to bring up the radius. Now go under options and turn this on. What this is going to do is show you what your brush looks like. So wherever you see in the center the clear area, or you can say that it's more whitish, this is the value of 1, and where you're seeing the darker areas, that's a value near 0. So where is Blender getting this information from? So if you go under tools over here and click on a curve, what it's talking about is this guy right over here. So basically what they're showing you is a half, or you could say the right or the left side of your brush, right? So if it was mirrored, you'll see the other half, so it looks like a mountain. So over here where it's all the way up, this is a value of 1, and going down, this is a value of 0. So we're going to understand what this is. The best way to do this is just to go under File, New, and just do Reload Startup File, zoom in. Having this cube selected, go to the Modifiers tab, click on Multi-Resolution, click on Simple, and just subdivide this until you get around 8 subdivisions right over here. All of these will be 8. Now press the 1 key and press the 5 key over here and zoom in. Now switch to Sculpt mode. The reason we're doing this is because you'll see that that curve panel is going to appear in multiple places, and it does the same thing. Go to Sculpt and make sure under the symmetry you have this off. Okay, now go under curve. You'll see that it's the same concept over here. Now if you press the F key over here to increase the size over here, just zoom in, press F, and I want you to click over here a couple of times without moving the mouse. 1, 2, 3. Now if you rotate this, you'll see that what it's actually doing, right? The curve. This over here is a value of 1, and where this is going down, this is a value of 0. So imagine that the brush is half over here, right? If it's symmetrical, this is what you're seeing, the half, the right side of the brush. So this means that if you click over here and add another point, add another point over here, now press the 3 key to get a clear area over here and click the mouse, 1, 2, 3, you'll see that it does the same thing, right? It's showing you half of the brush just like this, what we just created over here. So this is what all these curves are, right? This is the higher it's a value of 1, the lower it's a value of 0. So what does this mean when we are working with weight paint? So go ahead and switch back to the file over here, go to options and enable this back over here, okay? Now when you press the F key over here, you'll see that that's what this is. Now notice first of all that over here, if you hover your mouse, it says enable tablet pressure sensitivity for strength. Now we're not going to touch any of these, and it doesn't actually even pertain to us because we're using a mouse. But you can basically emulate this concept with this technique over here, right? So if you click on this vertex over here, click on this vertex to select it, press the F key to bring it down and just zoom in. Notice that this is set on a value of 1 for the weight and the strength. So if we creep up on this vertex here from the edge, right, and go ahead and make sure that this is on 0, you'll notice that we're hardly putting that value because it's based on that curve, right? So you can use this concept to slowly creep up that value. And of course, if you go all the way to the center, it's going to jump it to 1. So that's how that concept is working, okay? And of course, this is just show brush. You can disable this, you won't see anything, and then you can even have a custom icon. Now I don't have a custom icon to show you, but that's what that is. Okay, so we can actually turn this off because now you understand what this circle actually means. Okay, so without that, you can click over here and do the same thing. Slowly creep up on it and then just start clicking this. Okay, go ahead and click this and put this all the way down again. Okay, let's go ahead and switch back. Now over here, when we click this, we can switch to any of these brushes, right? Now let's say we're on add and we're using this over here. But if we want to switch to the blur brush, we would have to click over here, right? But you don't actually have to do that. It's because over here, you'll notice that it says blend. So you can temporarily change the add brush to the blur brush, right? Notice that the add is now blur. See this? So it's the same concept. Now we're just blurring. But you have to remember to always switch this back, right? You're temporarily changing that brush to something else. So just click on add over here. So anyways, that's what that is. Go ahead and turn this off. Okay, now what I want to show you is that from all the brushes, when you click on a blur, you're going to get this extra option called accumulate. This is basically going to work like an airbrush. So to see how this works, now the blur brush actually doesn't care about this value over here. It doesn't matter if you're on 1 or not, because it's only going to look at the surrounding vertices. So if you click your mouse down and just do this in a circular mode, you'll see that the blur starts happening, right? It's no longer blurring because it's done with it. Now when you click on accumulate, it'll work like an airbrush, meaning that it'll just keep spraying that the blur values. So this means that you can do this all day over here and it'll just keep blurring and blurring and blurring, meaning that it's putting the values down, right? It's bringing them closer to 0. So that's how this concept is going to work. Go ahead and now reload this file. Okay, so now you understand how to do this, okay? Now let's go ahead and zoom out and bring this here. Now here you'll see that you have auto normalize. So you already know what that's going to do, right? If you go ahead and switch back over to this mode and click on this vertex, as I've already shown you, that over here, if we change this value, right, anything that we want, and we click on normalize, notice that the values are changing. And if we bring this up to 1 over here, click on normalize, over here it's going to change it. And if we bring it to 1, click on normalize, you'll see that how the value changes, meaning that the vertex is only going to move based on this value over here. See how this vertex is moving? Even if we bring it all the way to 1 and click on normalize over here, it's going to make sure that both values fit, so they total 1. Now with auto normalize, basically that's doing the same thing, but the thing about this function is that you have to be careful with this, is because if you, when you are at add over here, right, you can actually change this down over here. When you click it, you'll notice that it's changing the other value, right? So this means that if we put this all the way to 0 and actually put this down over here and click this, right, you'll notice that when the value is being added over here, it's removing the value from the other vertex group, right? It's making sure that the total is 1, but it removes it from the other vertex group. Okay, when you click on normalize, you'll see that nothing is happening. So you want to think about using this very carefully, is because the fact that it's actually removing the value from the other vertex group, it can cause problems. See, if we keep going to all the way over here, you'll see that the other value will go down to 0. That means it's completely removed, made that vertex group not even part, made this vertex not even part of the shoulder. So that's the main difference between using auto normalize, right? But if we had clicked on normalize, it's different. It keeps that value on that vertex group. So that's what that does. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at multipaint. Okay. What this does, it allows you to work with multiple vertex groups, right? Change the values on multiple vertex groups. Notice that in the vertex group panel, it's not possible to select 2 vertex groups at the same time. But because we can select on bones, if we switch this off, we can select 2 bones at the same time, right? And this means that we are actually working with 2 different vertex groups, okay? That's what this is. Now, to understand how this even works, we're going to actually have to click over here, press the A key to select all the vertices, go over here and do remove, drop all the vertex group from all the vertices. Now go ahead and switch this off, click on this bone, do Alt R, okay, and press the F key to put the radius up over here. Now, in order for this to work, basically here I'm going to click this to add, by clicking on this bone, it selected this vertex group, so we're adding these vertices to this bone. Now click over here on this bone, you'll see that it switches. We're going to again click over here. Now click on this one, and now click again over here. Okay, so now go ahead and click on this bone, and now switch this to vertex and click on this vertex. You'll see that there are 3 vertex groups over here. Okay, now if we want to change the values of both of these vertex groups, right, we would have to select 2 bones. So go ahead and turn this off, click on this bone, press the shift key down, and let's click on this one. Go back over here onto the vertex and make sure that this vertex is selected, and press the F key to come down over here on the radius. Okay, now notice that because we have 2 bones selected, what it's going to do with these vertex groups, just click it. Okay, notice that we are right now adding we are adding to this vertex only, and only one number is changing. But when you click on a multi-paint and now click over here, you'll notice that only the 2 bones that were selected are getting their numbers changed, right? Click on normalize over here. You can bring this down. That's what that does, right? And notice that the last bone that we didn't select is not getting anything done to it. That's what multi-paint does. It's the ability to paint onto vertex groups, right? That of course have to be on this vertex. That's why we did it this way, so we can understand it. Anyways, go ahead and now just reload this file. Okay, so now over here, you understand what this concept is, right? You can switch between any of these over here. Okay, so notice this panel that exists over here. Now, if we switch this quickly to vertex paint, you'll notice that you're seeing the same panel over here. Okay, now if we switch this to a sculpt mode, we've already seen that this panel exists over here. It's the same concept. Now, if we switch to texture paint over here, right, and we wanted to paint on this figure, you'll notice that that panel is not appearing over here, right? So if we just click on add simple UVs and do diffuse color, click on this real quick and go down, you'll see that it appears over here again. Okay, so that's basically the difference. Now let me just show you one extra thing over here. You'll notice that when we are in Weight Paint, we have to click on the vertex. So this is the same thing with Vertex Paint. You see, in order to add colors to your objects using Vertex Paint, this is without UV unwrapping, you would have to click on a vertex for this to work, right? So if we click on it over here, just click on draw in this mode, switch this to blue or something. And now when you click on this vertex, you'll notice that we can only paint on the vertex and we cannot click inside, right? Notice that the brushes are the same over here in Vertex Paint too, right? But notice that the weight value is not there because this is being treated like the weight value. Same concept, okay? Now in Texture Paint, we don't have to worry about that because Texture Paint is based on a different concept that is basically based on UV unwrapping, and you're using an actual image, so you can paint anywhere that you want with a Texture Paint. And of course, Sculpt Mode is Sculpt Mode. That's just modifying or deforming your mesh with Sculpt Mode. So I just want you to see that what Blender is doing with these panels, right? Once you understand how one panel works, and when you see it again, it's going to appear in different places, right? So as you can see over here, if you just expand this, notice that when we are seeing this panel, it's saying that there are two users of this brush, right? Remember when we were looking at the data block, when we had when we click over here, we can switch to any data block, and when we had another duplicate object using the figure, it started to show the number 2, meaning that it's the same concept, right? Once you understand how something works in Blender, you'll see it over and over again in different places. That's the one of the great things about Blender, is because of this concept of data blocks where you can link between these data blocks, right? It's the same, it's about reusability. So once you understand how one panel works, you understand how all of them work. Notice that under the shape keys, it's the same thing, plus minus, and you have this drop down, plus minus, and you have this drop down. Okay, so just be aware of this concept in Blender. Go ahead and just reload this over here. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.